September came, and with September came the time change. And let me tell you, nothing will light a fire underneath you and want you to get out of school like the time change will. Because I did not want to get out of here when it was dark outside. So that was motivation for me to hurry up, get my stuff done, and go home before it got dark on me. And there's nothing funnier than walking outside and your car being the only one that's out in the parking lot. And that happened to me many times also.
What about when you forgot?
That was later in the year. I'm getting to that. Actually, I knew it was going to happen sooner or later, and it didn't happen until like April. But there was many a times where I walked down the 5th grade hall, and then right before I hit the door, I realized that I had driven to school that day. But it didn't happen until May that I completely forgot, and got home when I realized that I had driven to school. Am I lying? Oh, and I think it was around September too that I realized that it was okay to call you guys by your first name. Isn't that right, Miss Farrell?
Yes,
I mean, Carol. October came, and I learned that a Halloween party had become a fall party. That I can no longer call it a Halloween party. And that parents might only choose to leave their kids in the party if it didn't get too Halloween-y, whatever that meant. True story, I got a text telling me that that child could only stay in my room if the party wasn't too much about Halloween. I don't know what she expected, but I was going to, I don't know. Anyways, I realized I no longer like parties. They were fun when I was a student. Oh, also I think it was in October. Melissa, you'll have to help me remember if it was October or not. When I began to realize what it was like to have a brother in the same school you teach. Because I think it was in October when Melissa had a back problem, and David went up to her and said, "Just go to my brother because he's really good at popping back." Melissa marched down the hallway and asked me if I would pop her back because my brother told her that I was really good at it and that I would pop everybody's back. Melissa said it helped. Actually, it didn't help. It didn't help, so don't come to me. So that was my first David experience. I learned in November that a Thanksgiving party was still a Thanksgiving party. That one didn't change the name. I began to realize that 1 week of vacation didn't seem that long anymore. And I think it was in November that I realized that when teaching myths and legends for reading, as a reading mini lesson, when you ask a kid if they know of any legends, Holly's already laughing. When you ask a kid if they know of any legends, they will quickly say yes and say Michael Jackson. Holly, am I lying? I wish I was making some of this stuff up. Oh, December came, and a Christmas party had been replaced by a winter party. And it was also in December that I had lunch with 2 of my girls, 4th grade girls, and they gave me the scoop on who liked who, and who had gotten over who, and who was fighting over who in 2nd grade. 4th grade, excuse me. Y'all, that might be happening in 2nd grade too? Yeah. they let me know that 2 girls in 4th grade could like the same boy and still be friends because they could be mature about it. I learned that 2 weeks of vacation sounded a lot better than 1 week of vacation. January came, and I experienced my first snow day. The snow day as a teacher is 100 times better than the snow day as a student. Seriously, I think I got more excited as a teacher than when I was a kid. But January, something very serious happened at Rome School. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Really? The most traumatic, tragic thing happened at Rome School. Nobody? Guys, you don't remember? We almost ran out of paper and ink.
That's every month. That just starts in January.
How can y'all? That was January. I realize how important these 2 things are to us as teachers. And I think I realized that if we ever run out of paper and ink, we might just revolt. That was January, really. And y'all forgot. Or at least we acted like we were going to revolt. The way some of us were talking and...
We fixed those numbers in response to
Exactly. Then February came, and I realized that snow days are no longer fun because we have to make them up. I don't like snow days anymore. A Valentine's party had changed its name, so it could still be called a Valentine's party. And then in February, Natalie, you'll have to help me remember this. I had another David experience. I think it might have been February. Like I said, it's all a blur now. With David, when it was lunchtime, and right after lunchtime, from time to time, I like to get me ice cream, you know? That day, I didn't have any change with me. I didn't think it was any big deal if I walked down the hall and asked my brother David for 50 cents.
My whole class board.
But to Natalie, it just seemed like the weirdest, funniest thing ever. To me, it's just, it's my brother, 50 cents. He can let me borrow 50 cents. Right? I think Natalie was rolling on the floor. Right, like I said, no big deal to me. I don't know who I'm going to ask next year when I don't have money. Because he won't be here. March came. I learned what it was like to cram to try to get everything in by CRCT time. I'm going to go ahead and admit it, Cindy and Charlie. I taught an economics unit in 2 days. The whole thing in 2 days. April came, and with that, CRCT. In case any of you were wondering, I did not throw up. You know, we were talking about what happens if kids throw up. What happens if kids have to go to the restroom? And in my head I was thinking, what about if I throw up? Forget the kids. In May, I learned that I would trade August for May 100 times. Nobody told me that in May, there's a switch that the kids just flip. And nobody told me about that. Brianna, Margaret, y'all could have warned me. They would do some of the weirdest things. Even the most behaved, well-behaved kids will just forget who they are and do some of the craziest things. One example, I think some of y'all have heard this story. I was trying to teach poetry. Not my favorite thing to teach. And I thought, it's May, I have time, let's teach some poetry. So I was up there teaching poetry. And I looked, one of the kids had their poetry notebook. I'm going to do a reenactment right now. This is their poetry notebook. Had it sideways with the spiral just going like this. True story. That was the last time I did poetry. And Cindy has there's another Cindy story. Cindy, would you like to do a reenactment on this?
You go ahead.
Okay. I haven't named any kids for obvious reasons because I don't want to scare you. Those fifth grade teachers, I don't want to scare you for that. Cindy came up to me in my room, Cindy, the principal of Rome School. And there's a kid that we were watching a movie. She came to my desk talking to me about something important. There's a kid that walked up to her with the awards day invitation. Notice, Carol, do you know who I'm talking about? I think she does. Came up with the awards invitation. I don't know why. He forgot that this was Cindy, the principal, and asked her, "Can you smell this? Can you smell this? Can you smell this?" Why? Cindy looked at me and said, "He just asked me if I would smell it." To which I said, "Cindy, it's every day, all day long with this kid." To me, it was no big deal. But to her, she was obviously very shocked by it. Just one of the things in May that I experienced. There was one thing that I learned the whole year, I think every month. And I learned that working with mostly women will be one of the most wonderful and interesting things for me. I learned that what might seem obvious to me might not seem so obvious to Margaret and Brianna. I think Brianna knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go ahead and share it real quick. We were trying to teach difference in stories. We were trying to teach like 3 different Cinderella stories. And we thought that we would share these stories with our 3 classes, And I think it was Brianna or Margaret, the one that said, "Okay, we'll just rotate our classes to each other, and then we'll read the stories to each other's classes." And I said, "Guys, why don't we just move to the classes?" As opposed to 25, or actually 75 kids moving in the hall, why don't we 3 just move to each other? And then Brianna looked at me and said, "That's a great idea." I'm not quoting her, but something I learned. The last thing, and I think it's the most important thing I learned about being at Rome, is that I have a new family. And that it is my Rome family. And I really learned what it means when you guys say once a bobcat, always a bobcat. So.